and I will show you. But traditionally, the way labneh is served, with fresh pita bread, of course. When you go into restaurants throughout the Middle East, you would take your labneh and just swirl it around like this and get a little well in the middle. And then you would want to add a nice high quality olive oil. I'm using Galili, which is something that we sell. Gonna pour a little bit in the middle. And then I'm just gonna turn it around like this and get it all around. And then you sprinkle some za'atar on top. And this is the traditional way to serve labneh and za'atar. And we'll talk about what is za'atar, because some of you might be wondering about that, and I will be happy to break that down in a few minutes. This was yummy. Okay. Just to let you know, we are going to be going live both on Zoom, but we're also going to be going live on Facebook. So anybody who does not want their picture shown, you can take off your video if you would like, so that way you are not being seen. But we are going to go in the Facebook world today. Okay.
Debbie,
David,
did you peel your cucumber? I can't tell from that.
I did not. I kept it whole.
Okay, so just to shred it.
Yeah, shred or mince, chop, however you want. No problem.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to officially welcome everybody. We are here in my kitchen. I'm Debbie Kornberg. Welcome to Spice It Up with Deb. We are cooking with a community of people, actually not just in California, but also in New Jersey from what I can see. And our goal here is to bring community together by cooking. Everybody is in their own kitchen. I'm in my kitchen, and together we are going to cook a meal in about an hour. So first thing we're gonna do is make sure everybody is on mute, and remind people if they would like to ask a question to virtually raise your hand if you're on Zoom. If you're on Facebook, feel free to give me some thumbs up, because we love those. And if you want to find out more information, it's spiceitupwithdeb.com. We are going to have our ovens on at 500 degrees if it's a regular oven. If it is convection oven, you're going to want to have it at 475 degrees. And we're going to start with our vegetables. For cooking, we are going to be doing a baked salmon za'atar with lemon and tzatziki. We're going to be doing rice with caramelized onions, and our roasted vegetables with our rosemary garlic salt. So with that, hopefully everybody has their vegetables ready. Mine yielded a lot. You'll see some orange things. As we were talking earlier in prepping, I added a few sweet potatoes, but you should have your red onions, your beets, whether they're purple or yellow, they're going to be peeled before putting in. Your parsnips, peeled. Potatoes, I left the skin on those as well as in my sweet potatoes because those got thrown in there. Red onions, and we're good to go. I am going to take some olive oil, and I'm using an everyday olive oil, not the good stuff. We always save that till the end. And we are going to pour some on top and just make sure that it's really well coated. So I'm wearing gloves, but you can certainly do this with a wooden spoon and just pour some on. And we're gonna mix this up and get it all coated with the olive oil so that everything has a nice little sheen to it. And then we're gonna add it to our baking pan. And our baking pan, I highly recommend if you have parchment paper, to put it on parchment paper. It prevents it from sticking. Okay, so you can start to see it's got that nice little shine on here. And once you feel your vegetables are well coated, you can add your rosemary garlic salt to it and sprinkle that on top and mix it in. And I'm gonna coat that some more, mix everything up. And these are ready to go. So these are gonna cook in the oven for about 30 minutes. We're gonna turn down our oven now to either 425. Hopefully your oven is all heated up and it got started beforehand like we did. A bunch of us joined on a little earlier. So I'm gonna close my olive oil, move that out of the way. Bring over my baking tin, which is right here. Gonna set it on top. Gonna keep my hand just like this and start pouring it out onto the sheet. I think I cut up a lot. So I'm gonna make sure, I might do this in 2 batches and save those for a little later, because I wanna spread these out so that they're not on top of each other. That's a big piece, almost traded out. And so your oven should be set now to 425, and that can either be, convection or roast or bake, however you want to do it. Okay, so I'm going to pass these off to get in the oven, and I'll give you a minute to get yours in the oven. And I'm going to move that out of the way. I actually don't need my cucumbers just yet, so I'm going to move that over here. So we are going to set our timer for 30 minutes. So I'm going to talk to my Alexa, and hopefully I don't set off everybody else's, or if I do, then we're all on the same time. So Alexa, set timer for 30 minutes.
Okay, Google, set timer.
There's a question. Go ahead. Go ahead, Janice.
Okay, so all the rosemary and everything goes in there with the cut up vegetables?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so just to repeat that, your cut up vegetables that we're gonna roast are root vegetables, the parsnip, the fennel, the onions, the potatoes, the beets. Should be all cut up, coated with your olive oil and your rosemary garlic salt. Mix that up really well. Put it on a baking sheet, ideally with parchment paper so it doesn't stick to the bottom, whatever kind of baking sheet, even Pyrex, it's better to put a piece of parchment paper there, or wax. Well, wax paper you're not gonna wanna do, but parchment paper. And put that in the oven. Your oven should be set now to 425, 30 minutes in the oven. If there's another
Debbie?
question, yes.
So my oven has bake or roast. What should I put?
Roast.
Roast?
Roast,
Okay.
definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah. I am turning on my saute pan now. So take a minute and go ahead and do that. We are gonna start to caramelize onions, and these are gonna cook for a while. These are slow cook. We're gonna cook them at a really low temperature. And these onions are for the rice. So just give everybody a chance to do that. Get your vegetables in the oven. The vegetables are gonna cook themselves now. So we've got the timer going for 30 minutes, so we're set there, and there's a question. Sonia, go ahead.
So since I'm using convection, is it still the same amount of time for the roasted vegetables?
That's a great question. I'm putting mine on convection at 425. You could check it in 25 minutes. They're cut, if yours are cut small, then you might want to check them sooner. Mine are a little chunky. So you can check it in 25 minutes and see how they're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Hi, puppy. I see a puppy. I've heated up my oven, and I'm going to go ahead and add a couple tablespoons of olive oil here for my onions. So we're going to make sure the pan's nice and coated. And we, like I said, are going to slow cook these to caramelize them and get them nice and brown. So I'm going to go ahead and add my cut onions. And I kept my onions small. And we're just gonna put those on a low temp and let them cook down, low and slow. Low and slow for caramelizing. Give everybody a minute to do that. While you're doing that, is there a question? Yes.
It says broil or bake. Which one should I use?
I would do bake. If your question was if it's broil or bake, what should you do? And I would say bake at the higher temperature at 425. You can see if, you know, every oven is different. And so things cook differently. You can see how it goes towards the end. If you want to give it a nice roast, you can crank up the oven to 450. So that way you get that nice brown crispiness on top. Okay. So ovens are cooking low and slow. We got our vegetables in the oven. We are going to now start rice. We're starting our third thing, which is to get the rice cooking. So if you are making rice in a pot, you're going to want to take 2 cups of water and put that in, or you're going to do 1 cup of vegetable broth, 1 cup water. Or if you're using, like, let's say a bouillon cube, or like I am, which is a deconstructed vegetable broth. This is our brand, The Spice Way. It's a vegan soup powder. It's just all vegetables. There's not even salt in this. So I like to call it a deconstructed bouillon cube without all the junk. And this is a great flavoring agent for so many different things. I use it all the time. So if you're cooking in a rice maker like I am gonna step over here to my rice maker, and I have my 1 cup of rice that I'm gonna add. I'm going to add 1.5 cups of water because I'm doing it in a rice maker. Again, if you're doing the pot, it's 2 cups of water. You're gonna boil that first and then add your rice to it after the water is boiling. Ooh, that almost came undone. Okay. Like I said, if you're doing a vegetable broth that's pre-made, it's 1 cup vegetable broth and either 1 cup water for the pot or 1/2 cup of water for the rice maker. I'm using the vegan soup powder or natural soup powder, depending on what might be in your pantry. I'm gonna mix that up a little bit. Get everything incorporated. I'm gonna close that, turn on my rice maker, and let that go. If you're doing the rice in a pot, you are gonna want to, once you've added your rice and everything's cooking on a low simmer, you're gonna wanna cook that for 18 to 20 minutes. So I just make sure everybody can see me. Yeah, okay, perfect. Take a peek at your onions and see how they're doing. You can give those a little stir. Cool. Okay. So now we've got our vegetables in the oven. We're sauteing our onions down to a caramelize. We've got our rice going. Now, everything okay? Yeah, cool. Okay, everybody okay out there? Any questions? Make sure everybody is good. We are gonna toast our almonds next in this small pan that we talked about. This is also gonna be for the rice. So basically we're getting all of our rice components ready to go. So I am going to grab my blanched slivered almonds. You'll see that my pan is dry. I am not going to add any oil to this. I'm just putting the almonds in. And for those of you who cooked with me on Friday, when we made the pistachio rice, this is a variation of it. So I'm turning on my oven to a medium heat. You're gonna wanna watch your almonds carefully so that they don't burn. And one of the things I love creating different variations. Oh, by the way, you could be doing quinoa with this. I didn't even mention that. If you're doing quinoa, that's great too. Obviously, quinoa cooks a little bit differently. I think I put that in the recipe for you. If you were doing quinoa, that is certainly an option. Is anybody doing quinoa in case you need instructions? Hi, Danny. Hi, Eitan. I see the wave. So we have visitors from Colorado. Welcome, Boulder. If anybody's doing quinoa, you can virtually raise your hand and let us know if you have any questions about that. Otherwise, I'm just going to carry on. I wanted to just say a word about how to add flavor to your rice so that it's different, whether it's a brown rice, white, basmati, jasmine, long grain, short grain, whatever you're doing. There are so many different ways you can add flavor, whether it's a vegetable broth, a chicken broth. You could even use something like shawarma blend that we cooked with last week together and add this as a flavor agent. It's just a different way to add flavor and add color to it. One of my other favorite ones is actually a Moroccan blend, Ras Al Hanout. It literally means head of the store. It's considered the crown jewel spice, and I'm sorry you all can't smell this because it smells really good. It's got a lot of cinnamon notes to it. I'm gonna just give my almonds a little shake there. And look how full mine is. I filled it to the gills, so I've just made a little spice mess here. Anywho, one of the things I love about spices from all over the world is so many of these blends are interchangeable with lots of different dishes. So the Moroccan Ras Al Hanout blend could be used as a flavoring agent for couscous, for rice. You can make stews out of it with butternut squash, fish, ground beef, chicken, lamb. There's no rules to it. And these are blends that when you go to other parts of the world is just your go-to blend for everything, whatever it is that you're making. And they use that as a way to add really warm flavors. So it's hearty. This has a lot of turmeric and cumin. The Ras Al Hanout has cinnamon, turmeric, ginger. It's got like 50 different spices in here. And they use a lot of those warm notes to create a heartiness to the dish. Checking on my almonds here. Not quite. I'm going to give it a few more minutes. My onions are sauteing nicely and they're just cooking down. Give that a little stir. Just going to keep that on a nice low temperature. Everybody good? Just checking in. Cool. Okay. So almonds will be done in just a few minutes. You want to make sure you have a bowl to put those in. I got one right here. So I have one right there too. So if you don't have a bowl to put your almonds in, you want to go ahead and get that. You're going to want to keep an eye on your almonds. They will continue cooking even after you take them off the stove. So you want to make sure that they're toasty, but not too toasty. Sometimes people ask about heating up their spices and can you cook them before you use them? And the answer is yes, it really does bring out the aroma and the flavor. We're cooking in an hour, so we're not taking all those steps and we're making a complete meal together. So I have omitted that from our cooking process, but you could certainly do that if you wanted to. Again, when you're warming up your spices to bring out the flavors of them, no oil in the pan and just a low temperature, a couple minutes, and your house, I'm sure you'll be able to smell it and you'll know when they're done. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off my almonds and put them right here. Turn off my stove for that. And I am going to set my almonds aside. Cool. And with that, we are going to start to prep our salmon. Okay, everything's cooking. If you're making rice in a pot, make sure your water is boiling. If you haven't added your rice, go ahead and do that. That's that. Okay. So if you're doing salmon, maybe you're doing halibut, maybe you're doing tilapia, whatever the fish preference is, salmon is pretty accessible, but there's no right or wrong here. What you will want to keep track of is, depending on the fish you get, how long you cook it for. We are going to, I'm putting mine in a Pyrex dish. You can do it in a pan. Again, if you want to use parchment paper, I'm a big fan of that. The natural oils of the salmon will help release it from the bottom, and my salmon does not have any skin on it, so it's not going to stick to the bottom. If your salmon does have skin on the bottom, definitely want to grease the bottom of your pan or put a piece of parchment paper there, so that way that's taken care of. I tend to use it without skin because I find when you cook it, it makes the house smell really fishy, and that's not our fave. Okay, any questions? Everybody's cooking along? Cool. So we've got our salmon, and we are going to put some za'atar on top. Za'atar is a blend of spices. It's hyssop, which is part of the mint family. It grows naturally throughout the Middle Eastern region. It has sumac, which is a ground up berry. It has a great lemon acidic flavor to it, and sesame seeds. That's kind of the core ingredients to any za'atar. But just like any Indian curry, tikka masala, garam masala, or even ras al hanout, there's no exact kind. There's just some key ingredients that are usually in it. And this one is considered a Lebanese za'atar because it's wet. You can see that really dark, rich green color. Other za'atars, maybe it is a Syrian za'atar or a Yemenite za'atar or a Druze za'atar, for example, is very dry and they don't add any oil to it. Syrian za'atar has a lot of garlic in it. Yemenite za'atar is going to be super spicy. So there's variations of it, just like what you might find with a curry or something like that. So I'm spreading my 2 tablespoons of za'atar on here and just giving it a nice pat in. And then I'm going to add olive oil on top of that and some squeeze of lemon. So if you want to measure out, you can, your olive oil. Give it a nice little drizzle there. There's 2 tablespoons. And the natural oils also of the salmon will start to cook through. Okay. And I'm gonna grab my lemon, which is right here. So I cut mine in half already, but I can cut it up again if you want. And you're basically just gonna cut your lemon in half. And you're gonna save half of it to squeeze, and the other half you're just gonna slice up. So that way, these are gonna go on top of the fish as it's baking. I love cooking with fresh lemon flavor. It gives a great acidity and a freshness to it, and this is gonna pair really well with the tzatziki dip. Giving that a really good squeeze, putting that on top. I felt a seed slip through my fingers, and there they are. I'm gonna grab those off. Nobody's gonna wanna bite into that. And then I'm just gonna place my lemon slices on top here. Make it look all fancy. Okay, and we're gonna set that aside for a few minutes until it's ready. If you have 2 ovens and you wanna put it in your oven, you can go ahead and turn on your oven to 350. And put it in, but I wouldn't do it yet. Just start to heat it up. We're gonna set this aside and let the vegetables cook some more, and we'll put this in a few minutes. Okay, so that knocks out that. Gonna check on my onions here, and they are cooking really nicely. They're super translucent and starting to caramelize, but not yet. We're gonna let them cook down even more. To get that caramelization, it's gotta cook a little bit more, a lot bit more. They're starting to turn brown, but not yet. Is this in the view? Is that okay? Yeah, bring it down there. Is that better? Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay. So now, if everybody's caught up, I'm gonna just go to the panel screen so I can see everybody, how everybody's doing. Everybody seems to be on their way. There's a question.
Sonia.
Sonia,
Me again. So I followed your recipe for the tzatziki, but I realize I have a lot less salmon than you do. So how long do you think it'll last in the fridge?
Great question. So if you have a lot of tzatziki, it'll last for at least a week. No problem. I would say even say a week and a half. It's just the yogurt and cucumber, and so it's not a problem. And it's a great dip for, you know, chips, veggies. It's a great snack. Oftentimes I tell families that it's a great after-school snack, especially if you're using Greek yogurt, because you've got that high protein content in there also. You could use it for other, you know, dip mixes and, you know, other things that you're serving with also in the future.
Thank you.
And there's one other question.
Ask me on the tzatziki. What is that supposed to be all done and in the fridge now?
No, we're going to make it right now.
Okay, great. No problem.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you're going to want to get a bowl. Thank you for that perfect segue, Janice. We're going to get our bowl. You're going to want to grab your yogurt. And if you are making your tzatziki from scratch because you didn't get it and, you know, for whatever reason weren't able to get it, we'll go through all the ingredients no matter what you're making so that everybody has everything they need. I hear my onions sizzling, so I'm just going to turn down my stove and let those cook. So if you do not have tzatziki dip mix, you want to make sure you have some minced garlic, maybe some green onions from your fridge. I would say 2 to 3 stalks. If you have dry dill or fresh dill, that's great. And if you have chives, dry or fresh, great. If you don't have green onions, I would mince up really small fresh onion, but I would do it really small and a little bit because that'll be a really strong flavor along with the garlic. But assuming you've got the dip mix, we're gonna go ahead and cucumber, your shredded cucumber or diced cucumber. What I really like about the shredded cucumber is you get all the juices, which you add to that. So don't discard your cucumber juice. It gets dumped right in with it. I'm using Greek yogurt because, first of all, they come in these cute little containers. It's plain, not flavored. Don't use vanilla. It'll taste really yucky if you got vanilla yogurt by accident. So you might want to check that. And gonna go ahead and add either a whole cup of plain yogurt. So I'm gonna add a couple of these to it. If you have labneh, and I talked about this earlier, if you happen to have labneh in your refrigerator, go ahead and take it out. If you've never heard of that before, I'm gonna tell you what it is. Labneh is a probiotic fermented yogurt, and it's very easy to make in your own house. You can make it overnight. It looks in a container like this, Labne. You can find it at your local supermarket, Ralph's, Vons, Kroger's, Wegmans for people on the East Coast. And it's a really rich, nice flavor to it. I mentioned earlier, just before we got started, that often it is served with Za'atar, just like this, that you put a plate down together of the labneh, you drizzle some nice olive oil, and you sprinkle the Za'atar on top, and you would scoop it up with some pita bread. Very traditional way of serving that, and I will leave that out for people to see. So I'm going to add a little bit of labneh to mine here. And I'm going to add my tzatziki dip mix. And I'm going to add my fresh cucumber and put that in. And we're going to mix this up. And after that, I'm gonna take a peek at our vegetables to see how our vegetables are doing. Or my cameraman. He just got a heat thrusted upon him. So they're getting there, a few more minutes. Alexa, how much time is left on the timer?
You have 6 minutes.
6 minutes left on the timer, so we're right on track there. And once those are done, we'll pull those out and we'll get our salmon in. And that will, if you're salmon or any other fish, will just be 15, 20 minutes. Okay, so here is our tzatziki dip. And we've got a nice amount here. Oh, sorry. So that way you can see what it looks like as we zoom in. Cool. Okay. I shared this, I think, on Friday, but I love sharing this tip, which is if you got fresh dill and you don't want it to go mushy, this is from Friday. Literally, it's the same dill that I used then. And I love keeping it in a paper towel to preserve it so it doesn't get soggy and mushy. So I'm opening up my paper towel. I did mention I really miss my Bounty Quicker Picker-Uppers because it's the best way to preserve things. But you can see, look how nice and fresh it looks. And this is from Friday. You can see where I sliced off. I didn't use any today. This is all from the mix. There's one question.
Yes, I'm sorry. Did you say to put the salmon in right now?
You do not need to put the salmon in yet. You can wait.
Okay.
If you want to put it in, you can, but you won't be on my timer. You're on your own for your timer. So yes.
Sorry, I have a question. I missed something with the salmon. Were you squeezing lemon on the salmon or just putting the slices on?
Great. So I used half of the lemon. I cut it in half and I squeezed the juice on, and then the other half I put into slices.
Okay, on top.
And then
okay,
I put it on top.
Thank you. And I know I had, when we talked previously, I would do exactly the same thing with the chicken, just reduce the cooking time when I'm doing that. Okay, thanks.
Yes. The last piece I want to show you is if you want to use a Ziploc bag and then take scissors and cut holes into this for the dill or any other herb, whether it's basil, parsley, whatever, rosemary, whatever it is that you're keeping, because this is what helps it breathe. The paper towel absorbs the water and the holes in it helps it breathe so air can circulate through so it doesn't get mushy. So you should be able to do this with your Ziploc bag. And you can save these bags with the holes in it for future herbs that you buy after you're done with this. It doesn't mean you have to throw that away, so you could reuse it. All right. I am going to take my tzatziki and put it in my pretty bowl that I'm going to be serving with. You don't have to, but I'm going to give you a nice little image here of what everything's going to look like at the end. The camera shot, of course, the photo op. So yeah, I think I did that just about right. There it is. I'm going to put that in the sink. So our tzatziki dip is ready to go. And I have my spoon here for serving. So I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to check on my onions here, and they are browning and caramelizing really nicely. We're checking on our vegetables. You might want to go in and take a peek at your vegetables. I'm going to do that right now and see how they look. Don't forget pot holders. We're grabbing pot holders so that way we can see. And I'm going to show you what they should look like and how you know if they're done, in case you're wondering. Yeah, and I'm going to move this. Okay. Give everybody a chance to get, oh yeah, those look really nice. Okay. So we're going to bring the camera over so you can see what the vegetables look like. And the knife went through really easy. They're squishy. It's a great way to be able to tell your knife should just be able to cut into it. That's a beet. So these are done. They look really good. And